It has been almost 300 episodes in the Better Belly podcast, and I realized something recently, which is I haven't fully reshared my personal healing story in a really long time. So, as a way to celebrate the new year and new healing and new possibilities, I'm telling my story again, but with new details, deeper clarity, and honestly, perspective that I didn't have the first time that I shared it, all the way back in episode 1. 8 years ago in 2018, I reversed 2 straight years of constipation, acid reflux, and IBS after being told there was quote unquote nothing wrong with me and that unfortunately nothing more could be done. But now my health is actually better than it was when I was even a kid. So in today's episode, I'm walking you through the 7 steps that I took to naturally heal my gut when absolutely nothing else was working. And it's the same steps that I've now used with over 650 clients to naturally remedy constipation, acid reflux, bloating, IBS, PMS, acne, eczema, and more. And once you know these 7 steps, it's my goal for you to experience the same results too. So I can't wait to break it all down for you. Let's dive in. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. All right, so I still can't believe that I haven't reshared my story. I mean, I shared bits and pieces of it, and that's what hit me when I've been interacting on Instagram a little, is that anytime I want to reference, like, go listen to my personal story here, I'm like looking all the way back to like episode 1 on the podcast. And I'm like, it's the same story, but it's different. So I'm really excited for this to be our January 1 episode. I think everyone thinks, the beginning of the year is a special time. And this year is going to be the year somebody here heals who's listening to this, or whether you're listening or not. There are people going to heal this year for the first time in their life, and it's going to be mind-blowing to them. So that can be you. Let's talk a little bit about my story first. So when I got sick, if you're not familiar at all with my story, some important things to know. I got sick in 2015. It felt very random. I stopped being able to sleep through the night. At night was my first symptom, which didn't seem significant. I remember on a Bible study group that I attended, I can remember sometime in the spring of 2015 asking for prayer because I wasn't able to sleep through the night. I'd go to sleep feeling tired. I hadn't had any insomnia issues since I had been in high school, so it'd probably been 4 or 5 years at that point. And I would go to sleep and then couldn't sleep through the night. And so I didn't know where to start. I was not in health at the time. It was totally abnormal to me. So, what ended up happening after that point in time was discovering things like, I started sleeping again if I pulled dairy out of my diet. Well, then within a few months, all my symptoms came back and I thought I wasn't eating. I must have been getting some dairy exposure and I wasn't. So then I started pulling more foods out of my diet. And pretty quickly by the end of 2015, I was on the low FODMAP diet, which was managing my symptoms, but I couldn't get back off it. And then over the next course of 2015 to 2016, I lost my period. I started losing hair. I got diagnosed with IBS and chronic constipation. I was seeing gastroenterologists at the University of Michigan, and a gynecologist to try and figure out why I wasn't having a period. Medications couldn't restart my cycle. I was kind of being blamed that I must not be following my diet correctly for having symptoms or whatever. I nothing was working. And I've covered so many of these things that I tried that didn't help me in podcast episodes because of what I went through. So like episode 3, why probiotics aren't healing your gut. It's true. They're not healing a lot of people's gut. So now I'm not saying that there's no point for them ever, but they are a far cry and they can actually be hurting your gut. And I cover that in episode 3. Or why the low FODMAP diet, going paleo or being gluten-free isn't healing your gut. Episode 279. I'm mentioning these because I'm putting them links in the show note. I have the constipation magnesium myth. Why is magnesium not helping your constipation? Episode 165. Why constipation medicine or like laxative, probiotics, water, and fiber aren't helping your constipation. And then 4 steps to end acid reflux and constipation at the same time, episode 131. There'll be some overlap in that episode with some of the stuff I'm sharing in this episode. But it took me about 2 years to really feel like I have tried everything I can find on the internet, everything a doctor's talking to me to look into, everything that I can find in a book, and I'm not healing. And so I had to very randomly bump into, basically accidentally, all the things I needed to heal. And I took all those things and I once they helped me get better, and I started applying them to others, and lo and behold, it starts working. So this episode isn't just about giving you one specific answer about like, this is the one thing everyone needs to be doing, but it's to give you an idea of the types of things to be looking into, because I definitely, of the hundreds of clients I've worked with, even people with the same symptoms, they don't necessarily always have the same root causes, but they have the same places that we should be looking for certain root causes. And we're going to cover those today. All right. So step number 1, I tested my stomach acid. This was not the very first thing I did, but if I had to pick an order to talk about things, this is the order I would do it in. I tested my stomach acid and why this matters. So constipation, acid reflux, bloating, candida overgrowth, fatigue, brain fog, difficulty gaining muscle, they can all have a potential root cause with an issue with low stomach acid, because when you don't have proper stomach acid, you can't digest food. And when you don't digest food, you're going to have issues with an overgrowth of bacteria or yeast, aka candida, in your gut. Your motility is going to slow down. You're just going to have a lot of the issues that we talked about. Low stomach acid can be heartburn. It can be bloating. It can be feeling like you get full really fast, even when you were hungry a second ago. Early satiety is the fancy phrase for it. It can just feel like a lot of indigestion or food sitting like a lump in your body. It could be a lot of undigested food in your stool. It could be fatigue. And so what I did is I did something called a baking soda test. And it's take baking soda and you use it in a specific ratio with water. You drink it first thing in the morning 3 times. You take the average result of those 3 times for how long it took you to burp. Not a small burp, like a solid burp, not like a bit of, that's not a burp. Like a real burp, how long it takes you to burp. And the longer it takes, the lower your stomach acid is. I actually have the whole test and all the increments and ratios to test in a PDF you can download. So just go to betterbellytherapies.com/constipation and I have it in a document for you. So that baking soda test, it's not like a full diagnostic, but it gives you a ballpark idea of what you're dealing with. There are some ways that, again, that test can fail. So if you have something like a hiatal hernia or you have a lot of stomach acid that's lining your esophagus because you're refluxing it, sometimes you will get that really teeny, like really fast, really kind of teeny burp immediately. That's one of the reasons that one doesn't count, is because you really want to be testing all the stomach acid in the stomach as it reacts to the baking soda and then creates air, and then that air should build up in the stomach and then be released as a full burp. If that never happens, you probably have ridiculously low stomach acid. There's another way you can look at this too. If you happen to have blood work that has the marker alkaline phosphatase, this marker would be on what we call the CMP, or the Comprehensive Metabolic Panel, which is where you would find like glucose, sodium, potassium. It's a very basic panel. It's just not always on there. But if it is and it's under 70, that's another sign of low stomach acid. Just testing to see if you have low stomach acid is the first place. Like, it's something, baking soda test is something you can do. Most people can do with ingredients in their cabinet. They can do it right away. And if it's low, it's never going to be the only thing going on with you, because your stomach acid didn't just randomly become low. It actually has a root cause, which, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, please tell me more, you're going to want to subscribe to this podcast, just because I'm going to be doing a series over the next 2 months, January and February, on the real root causes of gut health issues, and honestly, chronic health, like whole body health issues. So we're going to take some false root causes, like Candida isn't a real root cause, and we're going to talk about the real root causes of Candida, or take a root cause like low stomach acid and talk about the real root, like the root of the root causes. So just because otherwise this episode is going to be way too long. So acid reflux and constipation, but especially acid reflux, it's not always about excess acid. It's actually more frequently in the literature we're finding in the research that it's more about low stomach acid. All right, step 2, you're going to want to test for pathogens that the hospital doesn't look for. That's what I did. I didn't do it because I like knew this was an issue. I didn't know. I just thought, I assumed the hospital has already tested me for everything testable, for everything relevant to test me for. And that was not the case. And I ended up accidentally discovering this actually years after I'd already improved my health, like enough that I wasn't on the low FODMAP diet. I discovered it in 2020 when I was being trained as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And they forced me to do one of the tests that I was learning how to analyze. And I remember being annoyed. I thought it was a waste of money, because in 2020, I was like, this is the best health I've ever had in my entire life. I don't have any of these pathogens that we need to test for. Why am I going to do this test? And lo and behold, I come back and I've got 2. I had a parasite called Blastocystis hominis, and I had H. pylori. And now when I look back at my health, I now see, I have reason to believe, and no one can ever prove this. No one can ever disprove it either. In 2015, a couple months before my symptoms started, I had gone to India and been there for about 10 days. And I acquired, as many people do, traveler's diarrhea. I just figured I was done with it. And I'm pretty sure I probably got exposed to a parasite. My body initially fought back, aka diarrhea, and then it settled in, and my body then slowly over several months developed the opposite issue, which was constipation, as well as other issues like bloating and IBS-like symptoms. Right? So getting that test back not only then said, here, go. I was learning how to do protocols for things like H. pylori and parasites. And if people want, I'll put some podcast episodes on H. pylori, on parasites in the show notes, so you can learn more on things to avoid, like bad testing that doesn't show it's really there, or protocols that don't really work. So if you want to kind of figure out how to deal with it and avoid all the stuff that doesn't work, go listen to those episodes. But you really want to test for pathogens and assume that you have these until you don't, because you have symptoms. You're not someone walking around who feels fine. I can assume that if someone feels fine, they might not have pathogens. But if you don't feel good, you have something, and it's really just a matter of finding it. If you want to know what types of labs that we are doing to, this is like the next most common question, like what labs should I order? I have them all in a document, including the pricing and how you can get them at the lowest possible prices. Just go to betterbellytherapies.com/labs. It's a new resource that I put together for you guys, and just go to betterbellytherapies.com/labs, and it shows you every lab that I recommend and why. And again, how to get them at a really affordable price. So that's step 2, test for pathogens. I had them. When I got rid of them, I felt way better. Number 3, don't just test for one pathogen, but many. And I do keep this as a separate thing because I've gotten so many clients over the years who said, Allison, somebody tested me for candida and I know I have candida and I have treated it, but it keeps coming back. I'm like, did they test you for anything else? They're like, what do you mean anything else? Well, I don't know, H. pylori, C. diff, mold, anything. No, why would they test me for that? Well, because you're still sick, right? You don't want to get so hyper-focused on one pathogen. I know I have a parasite, I know it, or I've done 3 parasite cleanses, or that is the number one way to end up not improving, as hyper-focusing on one thing. If something didn't work, yes, it could have been a weak protocol, but it also might just be that you're not thinking globally enough or big enough about the number of issues you're dealing with. Which brings us to number 4, another issue unrelated to pathogens is going to be get evaluated for fascial adhesions in your gut. All right, if you're new to the fascia conversation, my quick intro to it is fascia is like saran wrap in the body. If you're familiar with saran wrap, it's this plastic clingy wrap that holds things together, and fascia is everywhere in your body. It's inside of your muscles, it's around your muscles. It helps keep your muscles attached to your bone, your skin attached to your muscle, your skin attached to your bone, your organs attached to bone, your organs attached to each other. There's fascia everywhere, and modern fascia researchers believe and argue that there's more fascia in your body than there is any other material, more than bone, more than muscle. That's a lot, right? It's holding everything together, and it's in every nook and cranny, including your organs, your digestive organs, as well as non-digestive organs like lungs. I had a ton of visceral adhesions. That was actually the first thing I discovered that started turning my health around in 2017. Late 2017, I discovered or got referred to a pelvic floor therapist who happened to know craniosacral therapy and visceral manipulation, which are 2 methods or 2 techniques to address fascial adhesions. I had fascial adhesions around my nervous system, my brain and spinal cord, and I had fascial adhesions in my gut viscera, my small intestines, my large intestine, my stomach, my there's like little sphincters that we call them sphincters, little parts of your digestive tract that are like holes that should manage the flow of food, and they can get stuck open or stuck closed, and mine were stuck closed. And it was amazing when I would get treated by this pelvic floor therapist. By the way, not all the pelvic floor therapists know this. It's very random. She just happened to have just learned it and use it on me. But when I would get done with these treatment sessions with her, I'd go home and poop. And nothing else was working. So it was amazing. It felt amazing. And it was so light. It felt she was doing very little. And then I would go home and I'd have these massive changes. And that's because the work you don't have to be getting deep tissue massage for your body to be massively impacted. So if you want to learn more about fascia, if that's like a new topic or you just want to hear more on it, I'm going to link episode 90 called Fascia 101, the hidden force behind bloating and constipation, in the notes for today. So that is one resource there for you. So that's number 4. That's just another thing to be thinking about is fascia. Number 5, I got tested for my specific food sensitivities. And this was groundbreaking for 2 reasons. Number 1, prior to getting tested, I mainly had been doing diets that I simply found online as helpful. So even the low FODMAP diet actually wasn't a doctor recommendation. It's something I learned when I met someone I didn't even know, and that's what they were doing. I ended up eating their diet for about 3 days in a row because of a communal environment we were in. So we all were eating the low FODMAP diet because of this one person. And I felt amazing when I was doing it. So I went home and said, I'm going to keep doing the low FODMAP diet. And I felt amazing for a while, but the issue is I never got back off it. And so I was doing diets that I found that were supposed to like help me feel better, but it wasn't healing anything. The low FODMAP diet's not a lifelong diet. It's supposed to be like a 2-week diet that you then like slowly get off. Or maybe it's like 8 weeks, but it's like in the 2-week to 2-month range. That is like the window of doing it. And then you're supposed to, according to its rules, be able to reintroduce foods. And every time I try to reintroduce a food, it failed. Well, that's because there's way more going on in your body to heal than just food sensitivities. food is only at most 20% of the problem. There's pathogens, there's visceral adhesions, and then we're going to get into the last few things here in just a second with these numbers. But I literally didn't even test myself for any food sensitivities until 2020. And then I didn't test myself with the one that gave me the most accurate information until I think it was like 2021 or 2. I want to say 21. It felt like a longer period of time, but I do think it was only about a year. And I tested it after I miscarried, just because I was looking for why did I miscarry? And I found out through that test that I had a rice and corn sensitivity. So that test is called it's called Zoomers, food Zoomers. And I have a whole podcast episode on it because it is very different technology than what you're used to with things like MRT, Tiny Health, Viome. If you're familiar with any of these food sensitivity labs, I think any lab where you could redo your food sensitivity test and you get totally different results every time, those are what we call whole food sensitivity tests. So I'd get more into the details of the science of it with a ambassador from the company, the lab that creates this test, the Food Zoomers, on episode 267, the best food sensitivity test for you. So putting that in the show notes. But I tested myself for that, and it was super helpful when I got off of corn and rice. I was already dairy free, I was already gluten free, and then I just got off corn and rice, and I was sensitive to green peppers, which it's now obvious to me. If I eat them, my body has a big reaction, but I'd been eating them fairly regularly, so I don't think I noticed we call it intensification when your body has been in an environment for a long time. It could be mold, it could be a food you're eating where you don't feel good on a day-to-day basis, but you don't notice feeling bad or worse with that thing because you're in it so frequently. But if you get away from it long enough and then reintroduce it to your body will have a stronger reaction than when you were living in it constantly. It's called intensification. All right, so that's number 5. The 5th thing I did was test myself with a better test. And just in general, testing myself, not guessing. Don't guess, guys. Guessing it's not fun. It just wastes your time. That's the biggest issue. It wastes your time. It doesn't get you results. It makes you really afraid of food, and it feels like you can't eat anything. At least that's how it felt for me, and I know that's how it's felt for many of my clients. And they get the opposite effect when they finally get not just the testing for food, but also for pathogens. And what will happen, fun fact, is you will actually be able to eat more foods over time when you deal with your root causes. When I got rid of my parasite and my H. pylori, I was able to eat more types of foods. When I was able to address my visceral adhesions, I was able to eat more types of foods because my body was in lower inflammation. Number 6, I tested for and replenished my body's mineral deficiencies. And I also found some toxic levels of metals in my body. Primarily for me, it was copper toxicity. But this is something that is not talked about enough. Usually we'll talk when it comes to minerals and gut health. It's the main one I hear people talk about is magnesium, magnesium, magnesium. So you've probably heard that if you have been in the gut health trying to heal track for a hot sec. But there are many more other minerals you need to be thinking about, including things like molybdenum, which I had never heard of prior to becoming a functional medicine practitioner. Molybdenum, very fascinating mineral, but also something basic that you have heard of like sodium and potassium. You need those 2 minerals as much as magnesium for your gut to function properly. And pretty much 99% of my clients who come through my program are deficient in sodium and potassium. So I have a whole podcast episode specifically on salt because that's the biggest one where people are like, but aren't I supposed to avoid salt? Kind of, not really. I dig into it. Episode 232 is sodium deficiency causing your bloating and constipation. And then, so that was number 7. I dealt with my hidden copper toxicity, which, I don't have a link here, but I will add in an episode for copper. If you've never heard of copper toxicity, it's a fascinating scenario or thing. It's episode 159, copper toxicity, a hidden cause behind constipation and PMS. And way more than that. It can be a big driver behind anxiety, chronic anxiety. It can be a big driver with infertility. So very interesting component here. But that was one test I did called the HTMA that showed my sodium, potassium, and copper levels, as well as things like heavy metals. And just a really big warning here. I get a lot of clients who like to go off and buy an HTMA from some random seller online. And the biggest issue with an HTMA is you shouldn't read it like point blank. Like if it comes back and your sodium bar, like the bar on the chart is high, so it's like says you have a lot of salt in your hair, which you probably did. You don't want to interpret it solely as I have too much salt in my body. That's not how you interpret an HTMA. So the biggest issue when people try to a la carte the HTMA test is they don't interpret it well, and they miss data that's there that is, if you know how to interpret it, clearly telling you the right steps to take to heal, but you're doing it kind of, usually the biggest reason is to avoid a practitioner who's not knowledgeable and not knowing who to go to, or to reduce cost, but you increase your cost and the time it takes to heal when you're not interpreting things. You're actually missing really great clues along the way. So that's my one thing. I can't tell you how to interpret an HTMA without like in one podcast episode, just because it's so much easier to learn when you have like a chart in front of you and there's visuals. But that is something I teach my clients how to do in my program, the Better Belly Blueprint. So because of all these lessons, and we'll get to number 7 in a second, I realize that people can heal themselves on their own. They don't need a doctor or some super expensive, crazy knowledgeable practitioner. The ability to learn how to interpret a lab and put a protocol together is something that humans can do. If you can read a book, you can learn how to interpret a lab. It is not like a unique skill that only doctors know how to do. It is available to all human beings as, I think, a human right. And so in my program, the Better Belly Blueprint, I teach you and give you tools to figure out what labs should you be ordering based off of your symptoms and health history. How do you interpret those labs? How do you build protocols that are what you need and unique to your lab results, and not just the same cookie cutter protocols that everybody else is doing that aren't working? So if you're like, oh my gosh, I've done HTMAs and I haven't gotten better, if I had a dime for every HTMA I evaluated that someone already had before me, either from another practitioner or they just got on their own, that had data there inside the test on how to heal that no one found or no one addressed, I'd be a very wealthy woman. And it's sad. But all the people who I've seen those labs on, we address what is in the lab and they feel better. So number 7, last one, the 7th step I took to really heal. We're really talking about like, I'm not taking supplements on a daily basis to poop or not have acid reflux or manage bloating. I'm not. I will take supplements because I'm breastfeeding. I take supplements because I had the stomach flu and I got really dehydrated. So I was taking electrolytes as a supplement. I took stomach acid for a little while after that disease because my digestion was off, but like I'm not taking these on because I feel poorly. I'm taking it either as reaction to illness, to heal faster, or to maintain good health while breastfeeding, honestly, and being pregnant. So number 7, I got evaluated for how I breathe, and if needed, if you were to get this. So get evaluated for how you breathe, and if it's needed, retrain your body how to breathe so that you use your breath as a way to regulate your bowel movements, your gut motility, and your acid reflux. This is a fascinating, like one of my favorite things that I've learned. And when I was doing visceral manipulation in office, one of the things that I loved doing with clients was evaluating their breath and retraining it. And it didn't take a lot to retrain it. That was the crazy thing. I didn't tell them, now go home and be mindful about how you're breathing. None of that. When you reconnect the nervous system and you release adhesions so the body can move in the way it wants to move, and you simply tell the brain, hey, that can move this way now, the way you've been wanting it to, the brain says, hey, thanks for that. I'm going to start breathing that way now. They don't have to think about it. It happens automatically. Guys, healing doesn't have to be hard. Healing can be easy. It can be so easy, and that's what I want for you. And there can be nuances. Like I get clients who are sensitive to a lot of supplements or have histories of eating disorders. So we have to be really careful about how we approach their restrictive eating, or sometimes we don't restrict their eating as a way to just honor that historical issue for them. There can be nuances, but it is totally possible to heal. totally possible. And it can be honestly a lot easier than what you've been trying. If it feels too hard, it probably isn't the right thing. Unless we're talking about mold. Mold's always hard. But we support mold inside our program, and we have mold podcast episodes as well if you wanted to dive into that. There's so much support out there for mold. Number 7. That's number 7. Get evaluated for how you breathe and then retrain your body. This was a game changer for me. And it's something I teach a little bit of in our program, where off the top of my head, module 4, where I teach people how to do 3 self-evaluation techniques for evaluating for visceral restrictions in their body, and then 3 self-treatment techniques you can do at home, in the morning, at night, in bed, on the couch, in your chair, that you can do at any point in time to help rehab your organs, and including your breath. So if you have any interest in this gut-breath connection, because it's fascinating, y'all, go listen to episode 46, the gut-breath connection, how asthma, heart palpitations, constipation, IBS, and acid reflux are all connected. It's an awesome episode. So if you are listening to these 7 steps and you're just like, these are amazing, I've done half of them, or I've done none of them, or is there an easy button to getting all these done as soon as possible? Yes, there is. I created a system that takes you through every one of these steps and helps you reverse constipation, acid reflux, IBS, and more. Every step is there, and you can do it at your own pace and timing. And I recorded a video of exactly how it works. So if you want to see the inside of this program, go to betterbellytherapies.com/training, and I'll show you exactly how it works. And you can join today to get the best healing for 2026. There's no wait list. Again, do it in your own timing. You get lifetime access to all the information and all the protocols, all of the ability, like lab ordering, everything. And you can just feel lighter, feel like your health isn't on your mind for all of 2026. And maybe even accomplish some other goals that you might have that you might not be sure if you can hit this year without healing your body. So I would love, love, love for that to be part of your story. And if it's not, best of luck on where you seek your healing next. That's all we're here for here at the Better Belly podcast, is having your next best wellness breakthrough. So that is it. January 1st. Happy New Year, guys, and we'll see you next week for our new series on the real root causes of your body. Bye.
Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.